Hey there, everyone. Hello. Happy Monday. How's everybody doing today? All right, hold on. We got to fix the camera here. I did not, no, that's not good either. I did not do my makeup this morning and you can tell. So forgive me for that. My son had an ear appointment. And so we've been running around all morning. And I always wake up in the morning and I'm like, I look cute. Like my hair looks cute and I'll put on some cute workout clothes. And I'm like, this looks good. And then I see myself in the camera and I'm like, oh no, nope. That maybe worked when I was 20, does not work anymore. But that's okay. I'm here. We're not here to talk about how you look on camera. We're here to talk about something so much more important, which is taxes. And I know taxes is one of those things that no one really wants to talk about, but it's super important that we do talk about it because if you do a few simple steps year round, then taxes do not have to be something that stress you out in your business. I have said this before, but literally when I go to do my taxes every year, it probably takes me max a couple of hours. And the business portion of my taxes takes me about 20 minutes. It's really nothing because I put a lot of effort throughout the year, not a lot of time, but a lot of effort into making sure that everything is set up so that when it comes to tax time, it's super simple. I've got everything I need and I don't have to stress out about it. So today's topic, we're going to just move that. Today's Facebook Live topic is 5 ways to prepare year round for tax time. Now, before I dive in, I do just want to do a quick little plug. As many of you know, I have an awesome membership, if I do say so myself, the Badass Action Takers. It's all about mastering and managing the money stuff in your business and taking action so that you can build a financially fit, scalable, and profitable business. It's a monthly membership. There's a lot of great content in there, a lot of support, a lot of accountability. And I'm really, really excited that we're going to be opening up the membership again to new members next week. But in the meantime, if you go ahead and join the waitlist for the membership, because it's not open right now, if you join the waitlist, megkwheeler.com/action, as long as you join the waitlist by basically next Sunday morning, then you will get a super special treat from me on Sunday night. Regardless of whether or not you decide to join the membership, you will get something special from me. So there's a lot of value in joining the waitlist, megkwheeler.com/action. By being on the waitlist, you will get early access to the membership. Plus you'll get to learn all about the membership if you decide to join, but you don't have to join to get that super special treat. So definitely get on the waitlist by next Sunday morning so I can get that treat for you. All right. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and dive in. I got a drink. I've got my tea here. I haven't completely woken up this morning, so bear with me here. Some of you may have noticed that we've switched our lives. We used to do them in the afternoons. Now we do them in the mornings, which is great, and I'm like more than happy to do it. My content manager recommended that we do it because this is when more of our people are online, which is great. But it takes me a little bit to wake up in the morning, so bear with me here. All right, let's dive in. 5 ways to prepare year round for tax time. I want to dive into number 1. So number 1 is to keep a calendar of the important dates. And I've got I want to pull my notes over here real fast so I don't forget anything. Look, for most of our businesses, the tax relevant dates, there aren't very many of them. There's going to be, the annual filing, usually on April 15th. Again, this is assuming you're in the US here. And it's assuming that you are an LLC or an S corporation or a partnership or a sole proprietor. We're not talking about C corporations right now. They have different filing dates. But for the most part, you're going to have that annual filing. And then you're going to have quarterly taxes, which we're going to talk about in a few steps. But it's still really important to write those dates down and to have a sense for what those dates are, because I think too often what I see happen with folks in my community is they think taxes are once a year, they're due in April, and they don't think about them at all for the entire year, plus the few months. And then all of a sudden it's April 14th and they're like, shit, I got to get ready. I'm not prepared. So if you keep a calendar of these important dates, I think it'll just help you kind of understand the different touch points when you need to check in on the tax stuff. And that way, the rest of the time, you don't have to think about it, right? Because nope, I've got it on my calendar. I'll get an alert that, when it's time to think about this. And so what I would also recommend doing is setting up reminders at least a few weeks, maybe even a month ahead of these dates. So, set a reminder March 15th for your annual taxes. Set a reminder a few weeks ahead of when your quarterly tax payments are due. And again, that way you don't have to worry about it the rest of the year. You just know, okay, I'm going to get that alert. I'm going to get that reminder when I've got a couple of weeks to get those paid or get those filed. And then I will dive into them then. So that's my first tip for you, is to keep a calendar of your important dates. So annual filing dates, quarterly payment dates, and then set a reminder for at least a few weeks before each. Also, and we're just talking about income taxes there. If you pay things like sales tax, or if you pay property tax on your business, or any kind of excise tax or franchise tax, anything like that, same thing. Make sure you're adding those dates to your calendar as well. And that way you've got a comprehensive calendar. And I put mine directly on my regular calendar. So I don't have a separate calendar. I just have them scheduled on my regular calendar, and I get that alert. I set the reminder for at least a few weeks ahead of time so that I've got plenty of time to prepare. Cool. So that's an easy one. Keep a calendar of your important tax dates. And hey, everyone, I noticed we just got a bunch of people who just started tuning in. Today, we're talking about 5 ways to prepare year-round for business tax time. And so my first recommendation is to keep a calendar of those important dates and to set a reminder at least a few weeks before each one. All right, tip number 2, and you guys have, I'm not supposed to say you guys anymore. All of you have heard me, y'all have heard me say this so many times before, and I'm going to say it again. Have a good accounting system. This is pretty much the answer to any money problem in your business, is have a good accounting system. You're always going to hear me recommend this, because keeping good track of the numbers in your business is so important for so many reasons. So in order to really prepare year-round for tax time, have a good accounting system, one that automatically syncs and brings in your bank account info, your credit card info, all of your transactions in your business, so that you're not having to do the manual input. One that does a really good job of just tracking everything, one that's easy and simple to use so that you're actually using it. And one that has reporting capabilities so that you can see, what your revenues are, what your expenses are, where your profits at, and you can pull the data you need for tax time. I highly recommend Wave apps. You all, I think, have probably heard me say this before. I love Wave apps because it is free for the most part. There's a few enhanced features that you need to pay for, but honestly, I'm still on the free plan, and it works great for me. So it's completely free. It's easy to set up. It's easy to use. For the most part, it works really well. They had a few bumps the last few months with some syncing issues, but I think those have been, or they've either been completely worked out or they're working on them right now. But Wave Apps is really a great tool. So WAVEAPPS.com. I highly recommend Wave Apps. If you have any kind of inventory, Wave Apps won't work for you, but QuickBooks is a great option as well. So having a good accounting system really helps you to track all of your transactions. And it also, if it's one that's easy to use, one that you're familiar with and comfortable with, it's one that will stay updated. And that's the crucial part as well, is that it does stay updated. I have worked with too many clients who, come tax time, we're literally digging through Excel spreadsheets, and I'm not joking, boxes of receipts to try to backtrack everything. So having that good accounting system is really important. I also want to mention too, and this came up the other day, a good friend of mine, Bobby Klink, mentioned this, and I'm so glad he did, because I do this too in my business, and I know a lot of you do as well, which is, in the event that you use your personal credit card for certain business expenses. So the example I'll give, Bobby does this, I do this too, is when we travel for business, we use our personal credit card. And I do this for a few reasons. Number one, my credit line on my personal credit card is so much significantly bigger than my business credit card that, I prefer to kind of put those expenses there so that it doesn't eat up the credit line of my business card, especially when I'm going, to a week-long conference and, thousands of dollars for a hotel and all of these other things. The second reason is my personal credit card has additional travel protections and benefits, because it just happens to be a really good card for travel. And so I prefer to put my travel expenses on there because they're more protected. And I'm more protected when I'm traveling, when I'm using that card for those expenses, than my business credit card. My business credit card's great for just about everything else, but it's really not a travel card. And so, so that's why I and a lot of other people will do this, because it's just sort of a better system. And so, we've got a comment here. Hey Meg, I use QuickBooks Online and love it. I'm glad. And QuickBooks Online is a great tool. I know I'm going back to the accounting system thing for a second, but it's absolutely a great tool. I recommend Wave Apps because it's simpler and it's easier. And QuickBooks is not, the features that QuickBooks have are not necessary for most of the business owners that I work with. But if you have QuickBooks and you love it, stick with it. There's nothing wrong with QuickBooks. It just tends to be the case for the people in my community that if they're overwhelmed by the idea of an accounting system, I'm not going to send them to QuickBooks because there is a bit more you got to figure out which level is right for you. You've got to figure out how to set it all up. And I think Wave Apps is a bit more plug and play. But once you get QuickBooks up and running, once you know how to use it, QuickBooks is a great tool as well. So thank you for that. But anyway, back to the credit card thing. So if this is the case, where you use a personal credit card or personal debit card, whatever it may be, for some business expenses, which normally I don't recommend. But in the case of something like travel, or if it's a bigger expense where there's some benefit to using your personal card, then that's okay. But what you want to make sure you do is make sure that that transaction or those transactions gets into your accounting system. Because the problem is, and Bobby was just talking about this the other day, the problem is that if you don't, you will forget at the end of the year when you're doing your taxes, you may miss thousands of dollars in deductions that you put on your personal card and forget to deduct those as business expenses. So I do this in a couple of ways. The first thing I do is I actually keep a spreadsheet, I keep a spreadsheet. So basically every month when I sit down to do my personal finances, I go through my personal credit card statement, transactions, and I just identify if any of them are business related. And then what I do is I add them to a separate spreadsheet that I use. It's very simple. I just list out the date, the transaction, and the amount. And then when I sit down to do my business accounting, I pull up that spreadsheet that lists out all of those business expenses paid for with a personal card, and I add them into my accounting system. And then right next to them, I just put okay, meaning I've added them in. And what's great about having that middle spreadsheet, you don't have to do that middle spreadsheet that I do, but what's great about having that is then at the end of the year, so when I'm sitting down to do our taxes in April, well, I usually do them a little bit earlier, but to do them for April, I then pull up my personal credit card one more time. I pull up every transaction in the entire year, and I do another quick scrub just to make sure there's nothing I've missed. And so what I can then do at that point, because I've got that spreadsheet that lists out all those transactions and lists out whether or not I've added them into my business accounting software, is I can really quickly tell whether or not it's an expense I've already accounted for in my business accounting records or not. So it makes the process super simple. But I do just want to point that out, that even if you use an accounting system where your transactions automatically sync from your business bank account, your business credit card to that accounting system, don't forget any of those personal expenses, business expenses that you've paid for with a personal card, okay? All right, so let's go to, so that's tip number 2, have a really good accounting system. Tip number 3, have a system for documents and receipts. Hold on, I need tea. Now, for most of you, this is going to be your accounting system. So whether it's QuickBooks Online or it's Wave Apps or something similar, those accounting systems have the ability to upload receipts directly into the accounting system. So what I recommend, and you may have heard me say this before, but I am not a fan. Now, I don't get a lot of receipts anyway, right? Like I'm not doing a lot of shopping in stores for stuff for my business, but I do get a lot of receipts via email. So when I pay for Kajabi, when I pay for ConvertKit, when I pay for StreamYard, when I pay for my website, all these other things, and I get that monthly invoice showing that I've paid that monthly receipt. I'm not a huge fan of then sitting and uploading that into my accounting system. It doesn't feel like a good use of my time. It's very tedious, and it's just a lot of paperwork to deal with, right? So what I do is I schedule something called download days. Now, it's not a whole day. It usually only takes me about an hour. But I schedule a download day for twice a year. You could also do it every quarter too. It's totally up to you. And what I do on this download day is I essentially go through, and everything that I pay for on a regular basis, Kajabi, ConvertKit, my website, StreamYard. There's others that I'm not thinking about right now. Deadline funnels, Facebook ads, all of these things that are sort of regular expenses that I pay for usually every month. I log into my accounts and I download every receipt from the last 6 months. And I put those, instead of uploading each one individually into Wave apps and connecting it to the transaction, I just put those into a file on the cloud. I put them into a file. We use box.com for our cloud for the business. And so I put them into a folder, on box.com. That way, if I'm ever audited, no, they're not connected in my accounting system, but I can pull up that folder and say, here's every receipt for Kajabi, here's every receipt for ConvertKit, here's every receipt for, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I do for those types of receipts. Now, every once in a while, if I travel, for example, I will get an actual receipt that isn't something that I'm paying for on a regular basis. In that case, I've got an app right on my phone that for Wave app. So it's Wave, or it's Receipts by Wave is what it's called. I've got an app right on my phone and I literally can just take a picture of the receipt and upload it directly to my Wave account and tag it to the transaction that it relates to. So that's what I'll do there. Whatever your system is, just make sure you have one and make sure it's something that is easy for you to use so that you're actually doing it. Because if you're not actually doing it, it's not going to do you any good, right? So that's my recommendation to you, is have a system for your documents, have a system for your receipts, make sure it's easy, make sure it's something you're going to use. All right, so that was tip number 3 in our 5 tips to prepare year-round for business taxes. Tip number 4, schedule regular money meetings. So you all probably know I love money meetings, and money meetings are regular meetings where you sit down and review the money stuff in your business. Now, I like to do them every 2 weeks, I like to do them twice a month. So I do them on the 15th and I do them on the 30th in my business. And when I sit down for these money meetings, I look at a bunch of different things. I go through my accounting system to make sure that everything is in there. All the transactions are in there. They're coded correctly. This is meals, this is travel, this is, office supplies, whatever it may be. Make sure there are no errors or mistakes. I look to make sure that all the revenue I expected to come in has come in. There are no outstanding invoices that I need to collect on. There are no outstanding invoices that I need to pay. I look at my revenues, my expenses, my profits. Am I meeting my goals, my financial goals for the month? So I'm looking at all of these things. Excuse me. That's what I do at my money meetings. And one of the other things I do at my money meetings is I look at, and I do this at the money meeting on the last day of the month, so the 30th. So I do this once a month, is I look at all the revenue I've brought in for the month, and I look at my profit year to date, and I decide how much of that revenue I'm going to put aside in a separate tax account. So for a lot of you, if you've worked with me one-on-one, you know that I recommend you have a percentage, 20, 25, 30. It'll depend based on your tax situation and the state that you're in. But I recommend you have a percentage. And at the end of every month, when you do that money meeting, you look at the revenue you've brought in that month, and let's say it's $10,000. You look at the revenue you've brought in, and if your percentage is 25%, you'll take $2,500 and you'll put it aside in that separate tax account. That's the easiest way to do it. I like to go a little bit more detailed because I'm comfortable with this stuff and actually look at, instead of just applying a percentage every month, I actually look at where my profit is and how much tax I'll have to pay on that. You don't have to go that detailed. Just pick a percentage that makes sense for your tax situation. And then once a month at those money meetings, or you can do it every 2 weeks, whatever is easier for you, go ahead and take that percentage of your revenues and put it aside in a tax account. That way, you have that money set aside when you need to pay those quarterly tax payments. So that's the first thing you're going to do at these money meetings as it relates to tax. The second thing is what I kind of already talked about, which is to make sure that all of your transactions are in your accounting system, are coded correctly. Because if you're doing this cleanup work now, it saves you a lot of hassle down the road having to do it for an entire year in the week before April 15th. So it's better to do it on an ongoing basis when this stuff is fresh in your mind. You remember what that transaction was for. You know what you spent the money on. And so categorizing it correctly now can make a huge difference, because not every thing that you spend money on in your business is necessarily tax deductible. I want to make that super clear. just because it's related to your business doesn't mean you can actually take it as a tax deduction. Most things you can, but not everything. I've actually got a workshop on tax deductions. So if you have questions and want to go deeper into tax deductions, if you head to megkwheeler.com/shop, you can purchase that workshop. But that's why it's important that everything's categorized correctly and that everything's in your accounting system. All right, so that was tip number 4. We're going to get to our last tip. If those watching live, thank you so much for joining me. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them. Had to have the tea so I can wake up. All right. Tip number 5, ways you can prepare for your business taxes year-round. Pay your quarterly taxes. This is the one nobody wants to talk about because nobody wants to pay taxes. But here's the thing. Paying quarterly taxes, which by the way is required for most businesses, is a really good way to make sure that come April 15th, it's easy. It's a breeze. This is something that I do. It's something that a lot of my clients do. And let me just tell you, knowing that you've paid into the system, knowing that you've been staying on top of this and you've been paying in every quarter about what you need to pay in gives you such peace of mind come April. Because for most of us, what happens is come April, we've already paid in enough money. So either we get a very small refund. If you've ever heard me say this before, you do not want a big refund. A big refund means you're loaning the IRS your money interest-free. But a small refund's okay because we're not always going to get the numbers perfect. So for those of us who are paying quarterly taxes, we're either going to get a small refund or we're going to owe a little bit, or we're not going to, we got it perfect. We're not going to owe anything at all. That never happens. But it's such peace of mind because there's not this big surprise and this oh shit moment of, do I have the money to pay my tax bill? You've been paying it in and you've been following the rules. So you're not wasting money on fines and interest and penalties that you will pay if you owe quarterly taxes and don't pay them. So I would highly recommend you pay your quarterly taxes. These are due, as the name implies, over 4 quarters over the course of the year. And it's essentially, it's an estimate, or the tax you pay is based on an estimate of what you think your taxable income will be for the year. Now, if you go to the IRS's website, irs.gov, they've got a whole page on this. They've got the form. There's no form that you have to provide. You don't have to file anything when you make your quarterly payments, but they do have a form that you can use to calculate what you should pay. I personally think the form is a little bit overwhelming. I do have a quarterly tax workbook. That's also something you can actually find on my shop, megkwheeler.com/shop. And so if you want to dive into your quarterly tax calculation, if you want to make sure you're doing it correctly, then grabbing my quarterly tax workbook is a great option for you. And if you don't have a CPA who does this calculation for you, but I do not want you to ignore this. Even if you're not completely sure how to calculate this, I still want you to sit down and do a little back of the napkin math. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, even if you're off by a bit, having paid in something is better than having paid in nothing if you actually do owe taxes. Because again, that's going to bring your fines and penalties down. And there are some safe harbor rules, meaning that they give you a bit of a buffer. They give you some wiggle room, right? So as long as you are within that wiggle room, you're not going to pay any fines or penalties. So again, paying in something is always better than paying in nothing. Cool. All right. So those are our 5 tips. Let's go through them really quickly. Again, 5 ways to prepare year-round for business tax time. Number 1, keep a calendar of important dates. Number 2, have a really good accounting system that you actually use and keep updated. Number 3, have a system for documents and receipts that's easy so you'll follow through with it. Number 4, schedule regular money meetings and make sure you're putting aside money for your tax payments. And step number 5, pay those quarterly tax payments. Cool? All right. I don't see any questions right now. I'm going to give it just a couple more seconds. In case there are questions, please drop them in if you've got any. And let me remind you that my membership, Badass Action Takers, is opening up again next week. It's not always open. It's only open a few times a year, but it is going to be open next week. This is the monthly membership that's really going to help you take action in making more money in your business. Because in Badass Action Takers, we focus on how to master the money stuff in your business. Everything from cash flow to budgeting, to profit projections, to financial goals, to paying yourself, to creating scalable and profitable offers. And we're all focused on action, taking action. So it's not just talking about numbers and having spreadsheets. It's how do we actually implement this stuff in your business so that you can make more money. Cool. So it opens up next week, but if you drop onto the waitlist now, which you can do by going to megkwheeler.com/action, I am going to send you a super special treat next Sunday evening. So you've got to be on the list by like Sunday morning, give or take. I'm going to give you a super special treat next Sunday night. You don't have to join the membership to get the treat. You will get it whether or not, you'll get it regardless just by being on the list, but you will also get early access to the membership and all of the details on how to join. Cool? So to join the waitlist, head on over to megkwheeler.com/action. And I will see you all back here next week. And if you're a member of the free Facebook group, The Badass Money Makers, then I will see you on Wednesday for our Q&A. If you're not a member, head on over and join. It's free. It's a lot of fun, and you get a lot of great resources in that group. So again, that's the Badass Money Makers on Facebook, free group, and I do a weekly Q&A there as well. So for all of you who are in that group, I will see you there on Wednesday. I hope you all have a great week. Bye.